on?
I love my son. I just think he's mental. I love him, but he's gonna kill somebody. I just know that I was scared from a goddamn life. I think he had his mother's gun when he was shooting it at me. He pushed her out of the way. I took a side step like that. I took my gun and I shot him. Seen him move, so I just shot him some more.
What might cause a man to unload a gun on his son? To be precise, what might cause a man to shoot his son 11 times just to make sure he was dead? On December 18, 2020, law enforcement received a 911 call from the 2300 block of Packwood Drive in Pensacola, Florida. Upon arriving at the scene, a lady named Linda Blackman waved at the responders and showed the body of 36-year-old Christopher Roan. She claimed Christopher was her son and he was shot by her husband, James Blackman.
I really thought the world would kill that boy before I had to.
I understand.
I'm sorry, I really did.
Sir, you're fine. James, go and put your shoes on, man.
I did the world a favor.
Keep your feet warm.
I did the world a favor on this one.
What could possibly go wrong in a family that led a father to say this about his dead son? 56-year-old James Blackman lived with his wife Linda Blackman and his stepson Christopher Roan. Everything seemed perfect in the family. However, on December 18, 2020, a terrifying turn of events led James to sit in this interrogation room. James had fled from the scene, but was swiftly grabbed by the police when he returned to his home thinking he was no longer on their radar. Deputies conducting a thorough search discovered a Smith & Wesson MP40 handgun concealed in his vehicle. Despite his attempt to evade arrest, James was brought to the interrogation room. But what exactly happened that day?
I woke up, they was all arguing in the house. It was like, we've got this girl that's been staying with us.
Yes, sir.
Staying with my son, and she's like the devil. I mean, she's just like the devil. You know what I'm saying?
And who is that? The girl.
I don't know what her last name is.
Okay. What's her first name?
Samantha.
Okay.
Samantha Noble, Christopher's girlfriend, was also a target of James's violence. He didn't like her. It wasn't just Christopher who was attacked that day. James also shot at Samantha 7 times while she hid behind a camper. After killing Christopher, James turned his attention to Samantha, but thankfully she managed to escape unharmed.
And she keeps the house in a complete uproar. And I was asking my wife this morning, my ex-wife, if she could evict her, to serve her formal eviction, because he was driving me crazy, the whole situation. And she said she was at her wit's end with it too, but they had it handled. So I went back in my room and tried to ignore it. Still going on. So I jumped in the bath and tried to soak it out, you know. And all I could do was hear him yelling and screaming in the other room about it. And I got out of my bathtub and I told him, look, if you don't get her out of here, you know, it's going to destroy this whole house. Will you just serve her eviction? I said, if you don't, I got to leave.
No, I forgot.
And,
Go ahead.
And I don't really know what happened from there. My son said something about you're not going to do anything to nobody, and he started going in an outrage.
Okay.
And said he was going to hurt me or something. I heard him yelling something from the other room. And I know how he is. So I was already looking for a weapon because I knew he was coming. When I looked out the door, he was coming.
From when you looked out the door, out the bedroom door?
Out my bedroom door.
Okay.
I seen him coming and his mama was in between them trying to push him away.
Okay.
So while she was pushing him away, I ran and got her gun.
Okay.
In the interrogation, James made attempts to evade consequences with reasons that are as bizarre as his personality. Watch till the end to see the tricks he tried to pull off in the interrogation room to justify his actions.
You know, what happened?
Okay. The family dynamic. It's you and your wife or ex-wife living there?
Yes.
Okay, and that's Linda?
Yes.
Okay. And your son?
Yes.
Okay. And what's his name?
Christopher. Everything was kind of foggy after that, but I know we was tussling. He said something about, you ain't gonna pull no gun on me. And his mom, Linda was in between us, the mother. And he was trying to get to me, and I guess I was trying to get to him. We were tussling.
Right.
He knocked the gun out of my hand. The gun went across the room. He went running for the gun. I knew what was going to happen next.
Okay.
So I ran for another gun. Gun I had, my gun. I ran for my gun because I knew he had a gun at that point. So I ran the other way.
Okay.
When I come back, she was trying to get him to stop again. He had the gun over his shoulder, pointed right at my face, and said, you ain't going to point no gun at me ever again. And that's when I shot him.
Okay.
And when I shot him, I seen him moving. At least I think I did. Best as I can remember. I thought I saw him move again. So I unloaded the gun.
Okay. What's Christopher's last name?
Rome.
Christopher Rome.
Mm-hmm.
Is he your son or your stepson?
He's my stepson.
Okay. How long's he been your stepson?
Since I married his mama.
How long's that been? When did y'all get married?
I don't remember the year.
10 years, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20?
I've probably been with her 22 years, maybe.
22 years?
As best I can tell.
James describes, very calmly, the premise of the attack. Even though he's known his stepson Christopher for 22 years, James' violent outburst against him raises some concern. He says he shot Christopher because he thought Christopher might shoot him first, which shows his lack of remorse. James insists he was just reacting to the situation as it unfolded. However, Linda, Christopher's mother, testified that her son was unarmed and had his hands by his sides just before he was shot. Watch how he tries to back his story with theories and reasons that almost question his mental stability.
I've been struck in the head with lightning, so I can't remember dates and times and things.
You got struck by lightning?
Yes, sir, through the head, they said.
How long ago was that?
About 15 years, I suppose. I've suffered mental illness from it since.
Sure.
I didn't need to be in that environment, and I've tried to leave it many times.
Do you take anything for your mental illness?
Yes, sir.
What do you take?
I smoked the medical marijuana.
Okay, what have you been diagnosed with as far as mental illness?
Schizophrenia. I don't know. Antisocial. Bipolar.
Do you use any methamphetamine or anything like that?
Yes, sir, I don't.
Okay.
I don't use any drugs, but
Medical marijuana.
Yes.
Okay.
And prescriptions.
Yes, sir. You can take my blood right now. I'm not under the influence of anything.
I just wanted to ask because,
I understand.
they're not sleeping for 4 or 5 days.
I understand. I understand why you ask.
You know.
And I'm accused of that. You know what's funny? I've been accused of that 3 times this week. But it's not. I'm a insomniac. I can't help it. I stay up for days and it clouds my thinking, clouds my judgment, clouds everything.
Sure.
I'm
James tries to project himself as a victim of circumstances, claiming that his mental health issues were a driving force behind his actions. It's a classic strategy that convicts use to avoid taking full responsibility for their crimes, using mental health issues as a shield. While this tactic is quite common and, to be honest, somewhat overused, it never gets old. Many convicts curate creative stories to justify their actions, but claiming to have schizophrenia and bipolar disorder after being struck by lightning might just take the cake.
down the hallway. I was at the end in front of my bedroom door.
Okay.
He was at where the kitchen and the hallway meet.
Kind of looking diagonal.
He had his mom in front of him. She was pushing him back saying, Chris, don't do this. I don't know exactly what was said. She was trying to get him to stop. He pushed her out of the way, come over her shoulder with the gun like that. And I could see it pointed right at my face. I took a side step like that. I took my gun and I shot him. And then when I shot him, I seen him move, so I just shot him some more.
I didn't look that
He's been
close.
mental ever since his wreck.
Okay.
You know, he was mental before that, but the wreck really made him more mental.
So after this happened today, you got in your car, right?
Yeah.
And then just drove around and
I was going to drive over to the church and ask for prayer.
okay.
I drove over to the church at Gonzales and Pauline.
Yep.
I went in there and asked for prayer. I didn't tell them what I did. I just asked them, would they pray with me? And they said they couldn't. They was the nursery. So I went next door. They said, go next door and you can get prayer over there. So I went over next door to get prayer. The doors were locked. So I seen a police officer there doing the road crew there in front of the church. So I walked up to him. I said, sir, I just shot my own son. Will you arrest me? Take me on in. He said, what are you talking about? He said, I got something else going on here. I said, look, dude, you got to take me in. I just shot my son. You got to arrest me. I threw my keys on the ground, put my hands up, got down on my knees like that. I said, I'm here. Arrest me. He said, I am not going to arrest you. He said, I got too much going on over here. He said, my advice to you is go back home and let him arrest you there. So that's what I did. I went back home and then I seen y'all, and the only reason why I whizzed by y'all, I wasn't trying to elude you. I was trying to get back to my house where he told me to go. And the mental was going mental. So I was only following that order.
Yeah. Oh, no.
When I got down there, I put my hands out and I surrendered myself. I was not trying to run or elude. I was trying to get prayer and turn myself in a unviolent fashion.
When he wasn't sure if the detectives were convinced about his mental health issue, he tried to portray himself as a person who is honest and willfully confesses about the crime. He does this to dismiss the fact that he had initially ran away from the crime he committed only to be caught.
I got struck through the head with lightning, they said.
Where'd that happen at?
I was playing a guitar, getting ready for a show. I'm a musician. And the lightning struck me. And it took me years.
At the house?
I was at a Holiday Inn, or at somebody's house getting ready to go to a Holiday Inn. I can't remember.
Here in Pensacola?
No, I was in Georgia
Oh.
when it happened. And it took them years to figure out how damaged I was. And then they finally give me
Medication?
death and Social Security. Retired me. Said I was a danger to be around folks. So I stay secluded on purpose, on my own.
They said you were a danger to be around folks.
Yeah. I didn't feel that way, but I guess I am.
Did the lightning strike make you violent or change your?
I think so. Yeah, I do.
What room does Chris
But see,
stay in?
here's the other problem. I was probably already destined to be violent, not because I wanted to be. My dad was also an assassin for a big motorcycle gang. And he said he was grooming me for that position to take over when he died. So I think I was probably groomed to be an idiot. I've always fought it. I've even left from living with him at 15 because I was afraid I'd kill him or they'd kill me.
Was that in Georgia?
No, that was in Alabama. And I knew he couldn't come to Florida because I think he killed somebody here. And he had walking papers from the gang that he was in, said you can't ever go to Florida again. And I knew it because a few times that I was with him, he even got near Florida. He would tell his wife, I can't go to Florida. They'll kill me over there.
James again recalls the incident where he claims to have been struck by lightning years ago, due to which he claims to suffer from schizophrenia. But he doesn't stop at that. By now, he understood that he wouldn't be let off the hook so easily. So now, James is trying to justify what he did by bringing up his dad's history of violence, like he was just born to be this way. It's like watching a kid who got caught red-handed. He's either trying to downplay the severity of the crime or he's coming up with increasingly bizarre justifications with every passing moment. But clearly, detectives are not buying what he's selling. The pattern is clear as day. If you followed the same pattern, then keep watching. You won't be disappointed with what comes next.
I've never desired to cause him any harm. I've always tried to love him, make sure he had shoes and clothes, food. Even when he was out on his ass and damning us to hell, I still tried to help him. We've been both trying to help him. She's done everything for that boy. She's bought him everything he's ever desired. He's just a bad seed. You can't get through to him. And you know what's the worst part? I really think that he was starting to turn for the better. That he met this girl, and this girl has been like the devil in our household. She's caused nothing but strife and grief and violence. And he's done started hitting her. You know, the first time I had to pull a gun on that boy, he was struck his mother down in the floor, and he struck his new girlfriend down in the floor. And how can a man watch that?
How long ago was that?
It's been about maybe 2 years ago.
So most of this has happened since he's gotten out of prison?
It's been nothing but hell, dude. And I have tried to move from there. I've moved out even. But he come over there, Dad, I need a job. So I got him a job. He worked with me even till I trained him on the job. Then I had to quit the job because I couldn't work with him. I mean, the boys.
Where were you working?
I was working for a guy named Don over at, I'd lost my Social Security check for 3 months because they cut my benefits off. And I ended up having to go back to work, even though I was not really able to work. But the man let me work for like 3 months, you know, just a little bit, a couple hours a day, you know.
Doing what?
Fixing stuff, you know.
Like handyman stuff?
Yeah, whatever he had to fix, motors, you know. I'm very intelligent at fixing stuff. And I was fixing his stuff, and then my boy come over asking for a job. I'm trying to help him and his mother. His mother's always supporting him. She can't hardly do it, so I said, I'll help him get a job. Maybe, you know, at least that'll alleviate what's going on over there, you know. I've always loved that woman. But we divorced. Not because of infidelity or anything. Just because of the strife in the house. It's just total strife all the time. And I told her I couldn't take it no more. I moved out. It's gone for a couple, 3 years. Hurricane came. Destroyed her house. Cast us back together. So she lived in an RV with me for a while till we could find another place. And it brought us back together. We got to learning each other a little bit better, you know. Decided we'd try to make a go of living together again. And then right when we got back together is when Chris went to prison. I think he was already in trouble. And he come to us and said, Dad, I think I've done some bad shit. And he said, I think the police are going to come get me. And I said, what did you do, son? Did you kill anybody? And he thinks he told me that they think they killed somebody.
Where was this at?
At a motel somewhere here in town. They said they had him on video. That's what he was telling me.
This was what, a couple of years ago?
Yeah. He said I'm sure they got me on video. He said, I've done a lot of bad things. He said, I know they're coming for me. I said, son, we didn't do nothing but good for you, try to make you right. And look how you've done. I said, I'm glad you told me at least. And the very next day, the cops showed up at the door to get his ass. And we didn't see him for 7, 8 years, except for going to visit him in prison. And prison did not do him any good. It made him more violent.
In a last-ditch effort to prove his innocence, James introduced new details, painting himself as the true victim of his son Christopher's abuse. According to James, Christopher had always been a reckless child, even bringing home guns on occasion. Not only James, but his wife Linda as well, had feared Christopher might one day commit murder. Sure enough, Christopher did end up going to prison, serving a 7-year sentence for his crimes. It's clear now that James harbored a deep-seated dislike for his stepson, resenting the way Christopher behaved. The bitterness and hatred James felt towards Christopher comes through strongly in his own words, hinting at a far more complex and tumultuous relationship between the two. By shifting the narrative and presenting himself as an understanding father who was tormented by the violence and aggressive behavior of his son, James desperately tries to justify his own actions. But the more he speaks, the more it becomes evident that his animosity towards Christopher ran far deeper than he let on. The possibility of this long-simmering hatred being a key factor in the case is now impossible to ignore.
It's tough in this world, but I try to be also, because I'm a believer that when you leave this earth, that you go someplace.
I saw the cross. I know he's real.
And I certainly don't want to go down there, so I try to be right with the man.
I saw hell too.
So
when I got struck, I went right into hell.
It changed your life, didn't it? I mean, it changed it in not the best way, obviously, but you got your life spared, right?
I've been trying, but you know, the world just doesn't have it in for me.
Well, you know, no matter what happens from this day forward, you know, no matter.
I'm still going to have the Lord in my heart.
That's right. No matter what law enforcement, what judge, what courts, anything like that, that's only temporary in this life, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Because when we go home,
yeah,
we go home.
Yeah.
Right?
I hope the Lord will have me now that this has happened.
Well, you know, I'm also a firm believer that there's, you know, if you talk to Jesus, talk to God, and you repent your sins, and
I've been trying so hard. It's just, I don't feel like I was left any choice on that. He would have killed me.
And I totally get that.
But then
I'm not judging you at all, buddy. I have no malice, ill will, or anything towards you because of what you did. That's not my job. And I've talked to hundreds of people that have sat right here in your shoes, you know.
I don't have any malice against myself. I felt like I was doing what I needed to do to keep me alive. So
I want to try to clarify a couple things, you know, because honestly, you know,
I know
think
that I'm not sane, and
Sure.
I know that I'm.
I agree with that. I
need to
think
be
you
in
have
a-
some mental issues.
I need to be in a facility.
You have some mental issues.
I know I
agree.
do. But I've been asking for that.
Sure.
I've been begging for it.
Well, part of that, though,
There's
also.
no help for me because I'm poor.
Well, and medicine is not a cure-all. Medicine
I need
is a
help.
patch. But do you take your medicine like you're supposed to, or no? Because that's the $64,000 question.
It makes me sick. I don't like
Sick how? Not eating, staying awake. I mean,
all of that.
all of that. But you do understand, you know, there's just like cancer, you know, cancer treatments make you
She
sick
begs
also.
me to take it all the time, and I tell her I do, but
Well, you have to follow, you know, doctors prescribe it for
I
a
love
reason.
that woman. I never want to do nothing against her.
She don't have any, we've been talking to her
I
for an
love
hour.
that woman.
She don't have any hate towards you at all. None at all.
I'm so sorry that happened.
I can assure you, she don't have any hate in her heart towards you. She knew that you needed help. She knew that her son needed
And
help.
she knows nobody would help me.
But she's in a bind for the simple fact that here she is working, you know, 10, 11, 12 hours a
That
day.
woman works so much. She's the hardest woman I know that works.
And,
I feel so sorry. I feel like I failed her.
and she's doing that for y'all. I know
I
you have
know.
some income, but
I
also,
feel like I failed her as a husband,
But you know
as a
what?
man.
you know, in my heart of hearts, and talking to her for an hour, she didn't never say, why did he do that? You know, I hate him. I don't love him or anything like that. She agreed that, you know,
She was wrestling with herself.
you know, that you
We
needed
both
some
were.
help.
We're scared of him.
Sure.
He's violent. I'm not trying to make him a bad person. He was
No.
a good soul down there
It
somewhere.
is what it is.
Somewhere down there, that boy was a good soul, but I couldn't find it in him.
James was not as sad to kill Christopher as he was to fail Linda. This shows that his priorities were very clear. He finally showed remorse, but that was not for killing Christopher. For him, he needed to kill him as he couldn't see the good in him anymore. His remorse was about failing as a husband to his wife. His explanation about not getting enough help for his mental health issue was immediately addressed by the detective when he asked if James took the medicines properly. James's response gives a lot of clarity of how he had a habit of complaining, but not using the resources already given to him as a solution, further establishing his pattern of being the victim of a situation. The arrest report on December 18, 2020 sheds light on the events leading up to a tragic shooting on Packwood Drive, which ultimately resulted in the murder of his stepson Christopher. The jury swiftly returned a guilty verdict just after 2 hours of deliberation on July 22, 2022. Testifying that he acted in self-defense, James Blackman Jr., a resident of Pensacola, was nevertheless found guilty of second-degree murder of Christopher Roan and first-degree attempted murder of Samantha Noble. He was sentenced to lifetime imprisonment on March 8, 2023. From blaming it on his own mental health to blaming it on his son, James tried every possible way to justify his crime. The lengths he went to is quite pathetic to watch, but nevertheless, he believed it to be an act of self-defense rather than a pre-planned murder. However, his resentment towards Christopher and his life choices did have an impact on him, which drove his urge to get rid of his stepson, who he claimed to have loved earnestly. In this interrogation, the detective allowed James to spill out everything he had to say, and it was his words that mostly played against him. What do you think about this case? Add your views in the comments section below, and like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more such content.